Then it says that, verse 5, yet they will by no means follow a stranger, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. And that is very interesting. And we saw that in the video where other people were trying to call the sheep, and the sheep did not pay attention. But when the shepherd came, they paid attention to the voice of the shepherd. But we see the contrast among God's people today, where God's people hear the voice of strangers and follow the voice of strangers rather than hearing the voice of the shepherd and following the voice of the shepherd. But you see, if we are his flock, if we are his sheep, he says we must not know any other voice apart from the voice of the shepherd. Some people are familiar with all sorts and all kinds of voices more than the voice of the shepherd. It is the voice of the shepherd we must become familiar with. And that is why we need to develop our consecration, our devotion, our walk with God so closely and intimately that we can identify his voice. We can recognize his voice. If natural sheep can recognize the voice of the shepherd, and sheep don't talk, but they are able to hear and recognize the voice of a shepherd, then we, the people of God, we must do better. We must be able to recognize the voice of the shepherd. Today, there are many Christians that will say, God does not speak to me, because they cannot recognize the voice of the shepherd. You know, right from the Garden of Eden, in God's work with his people, he has always led them with his voice. And so even after Adam and Eve have sinned, when they report to God, they said, I heard your voice. Except that because of their sin, now instead of hearing the voice for comfort, they heard the voice in fear. But you see, the sheep does not hear the voice in fear. The sheep hears the voice of the shepherd in comfort, so that they can follow the voice and obey the voice. Say, I am God's sheep. I recognize his voice. I hear his voice, and I'm led by his voice.